What funny stories happened to you during taxi rides? We arrived in another city to visit, and we called a taxi. The car pulls up, and my mom is standing there, staring in shock at the driver. I didn't understand what was happening. In the end, when I heard the taxi driver's name, it started to dawn on me that it was my uncle. I just didn't recognize him at first. Once, I was taking a taxi home. It was night, dark. We were approaching my apartment building, and a bad idea crept into my head. Why not run away without paying the fare? The building is big. I could dash into the entrance, and they'd never find me. I bolted out of the car. First, I hit my head on the post, then tripped over the curb and fell onto a bench. While getting up, I tore my pants on a nail. I spent half a minute trying to open the door with the intercom. All this time, the taxi driver was watching me with wide eyes from the car, not making any moves. He's in shock, I decided. It turned out to be simpler. Already inside the building, I remembered that I had paid him when I got into the car. My friends and I went to a club, hoping to meet someone new. In the end, one of them left early to see her boyfriend, and the other went off with a new suitor. I spent a whole hour sitting in the car with the taxi driver, listening to his life story. We kept circling the block because of cars arriving behind us, returning to my building entrance again and again. I parked in the courtyard. I got an order and checked the address. Lucky me. It was the very building I was parked next to, so I didn't have to drive anywhere. I marked that I had arrived. A minute later, I got a call from the passenger, yelling and screaming. Her complaint was that I arrived too quickly, so she hadn't had time to get ready. Usually, it takes 5 to 10 minutes for a car to arrive. My argument that the app shows the car's location and estimated arrival time was ignored. In the end, the lady calmed down, and the ride turned out to be good, with a tip. But her initial reaction was definitely hellish. I don't transport children. I got an order with an intermediate stop, a lady with a child. Why didn't you mention that you have a child? Why should I? You can see that we're going to 2 addresses. It's obvious that I'm taking the child to the grandmother's and then going to work. I lived in the countryside. One night, we were taking a taxi from the city center. The driver mentioned that he wasn't alone, he had a dog with him. Well, a dog is a dog, no big deal. We got into the back seat and saw a bit of a paw sticking out from the front seat. The dog was sleeping. We got on the highway and suddenly turned into some alleyways. The driver explained, "I need to feed the dog, if you don't mind. Just 5 minutes, and we'll be on our way," and turned on the light. Then this dog woke up. It was a huge fighting dog. And the guy himself was bald and covered in tattoos. We didn't show it, but we were really shocked. I got an order instead of a destination. It was marked around the city, with pickup based on the navigator. A girl got in and said, "We don't need to go anywhere. I just need to charge my phone." We sat for about 15 minutes, chatted. She checked the battery percentage, said, "That's enough," paid, and left. About 10 years ago, a taxi driver arrived for me in a Jeep. Even now, for a small provincial town, it's considered a luxury. The car owner said, "This monster eats like crazy. I have to do extra work to make ends meet." I took an order. When I was already on the way, the passenger called and said that he was actually 100 kilometers away from the specified point. He gave a local address because he couldn't get a taxi from where he was, and he needed to get to our city. Once, I was asked to deliver boxes from a prestigious grocery store to a culinary school. Not all of the boxes fit in the trunk, so I had to put some on the back seat. Due to a minor incident during the journey, they fell and the packaging tore. I stopped to assess the damage and found out that some very unhappy live crabs and lobsters had spilled out. Overcoming my horror, I managed to stuff them back in and deliver them to the destination. Later, I gave a ride to an elderly lady to the train station. We were chatting amiably until she suddenly screamed at the top of her lungs. I stopped, she jumped out of the car, and started pointing at the vehicle with a trembling cane. I looked under the seat and pulled out a trapped crab. Once, during a downpour, I was riding home in a taxi. While I was paying, a woman rushed out from the entrance, pulling her hood over her head, opened the passenger door, and without looking, plopped right onto me. I could only squeak like a trapped mouse. The taxi driver cheerfully exclaimed, "We're in high demand in the rain." My friend recently started working for a taxi company. One day, he arrived at a call, and a guy comes out. My friend asks him, "Hey, did you order a taxi?" Yeah, the client gets in, and they silently drive for about an hour. Then, when they reach the final destination, the guy says that he actually asked to be taken to a completely different place. After calling the dispatch, it turned out that two taxis were called to the same address for two different people, but no one bothered to mention it. Night, rain, riding in a taxi, we're sitting in the back seat with a young man, and suddenly from the front seat comes a plaintive meow. The driver said that the previous passenger forgot a small Persian cat in the car. We took it with us. I got an order, had to take 7 students from one place to another, and then drop them off at the dormitory. On the way, at their request, we stopped at a convenience store at the gas station. They promised me a tip. When they got out of the car at the dormitory, I found my tip on the back seat, leftover chips with sour cream and onion. My friend and I decided to go to karaoke. We ordered a taxi. The driver, upon learning our destination, became interested in our standard repertoire, and then looked for each song and turned up the volume so that we could sing along nicely. I was working for Uber, so my car had the corresponding sticker. My girlfriend was living in the university dormitory at the time, and every time I came to see her, the following would happen. As soon as I parked, some girl would immediately jump into the I remember driving my taxi and arriving at the address. A group of girls came out. I asked for the address, they confirmed it, and I pressed start ride on my phone. The navigation app turned on and showed that there was a traffic jam on the shorter route due to an accident. Taking a longer route would actually save 15 minutes. The navigation app started giving directions. The girls immediately said, "Are you going to drive us using the GPS?" Well, yes. Then why do we need you if you're just following the GPS? We could do that ourselves. I didn't know how to respond. I drove them, they got out silently, and then left a bad review. Doesn't know the city. Once, I was taking a taxi, and the young driver, probably seeing a willing listener in me, decided to share his life story. Everything was fine until he revealed that he only proposed to his girlfriend after she had given birth to his child. He said, "Why not? Look at my brother, he got married, and she still can't give him a kid." I had to make sure my girl wasn't defective. I still regret not getting out of his car right then and there. Thanks to my 15-year history of bulimia, I'm still alive. Over the years, I developed the ability to vomit without using my hands, just by flexing my abdominal muscles. One night, I was taking a taxi home from work, and the driver took me to the woods, pulled out a knife, and ordered me to undress. I couldn't think of anything smarter to do, so I started vomiting the recently consumed cola mixed with shawarma. He got disgusted and drove off, saying it was too revolting to touch such a filthy pig. When I take a taxi alone, I pretend to be deaf. It's because very often, taxi drivers try to engage me in intimate conversations that cross the line of taxi driver-customer. During one of these rides, I sat quietly while the driver tried to start a conversation with me. I gestured to indicate that I couldn't hear. Almost immediately after that, he, pretending to talk on the phone, started discussing my breasts, my legs, how he would lift my skirt, and what he would do to me. I bolted out of the car at the first traffic light. There was a man standing on the street in slippers, dressed lightly not for the weather. It was -22 degrees outside. I was driving with a passenger, so I didn't stop to see what was going on. But after dropping off the passenger, I returned to him and asked what had happened. It turned out he had left his house without his phone and keys and couldn't get into his building. I led him into my car, and he used my phone to call his acquaintances who were in the apartment. He safely got back inside, and I went about my business. Thanks for watching, and what unusual stories happened to you in a taxi? Share them in the comments, and watch our other videos.